I have a confession. I am addicted to drawing astronauts. In particular, drawing astronauts doing stuff they probably shouldn't and or physically can't do. A while back, I filled a whole sketchbook with these drawings of astronauts doing stuff like roller skating on the rings of Saturn or doing laundry on the moon. It's been a while though, and I thought maybe I could do them better. Even though I've been using watercolors for a few years now, I'm still kind of trying to figure them out, so I thought redrawing them could be a fun exercise. This is one of the first ever ones that I drew, and I guess is kind of the starting point for this person. They're leaving home to go on an adventure, and they don't know when they'll be back, just that they want to have a good time. Years ago, when I first drew this, I didn't know how long the journey would be either, or just how many astronauts I would end up drawing, so I guess in that way we were both a little naive. In the original drawing, I had the astronaut sort of stiffly holding the rope, looking far too solemn for the activity, and I thought I could use a more fun, dynamic pose. Of course, there's no gravity holding them down to the sled, so letting go of the rope is probably a bad idea, all things considered. I have my other sketchbook open here because I like the design of the suit on that page, and I wanted to reuse it. A real astronaut suit would be a lot poofier and harder to maneuver in on account of needing things like pressure and protection from fragments of dust and other things that can cause problems. But maybe this is set far in the future and technology has improved. We'll go with that. We'll also blame the future for the astronaut's legs being too short. Humans just evolved that way, I swear. I didn't put it in the video because it wasn't very exciting to watch, but I painted in the astronaut and some of the trail with drawing gum so that I didn't have to worry about getting weird colors on the white suit. It's a lot easier doing it this way than trying to paint around it or trying to get the white of the paper back after getting color on it, although sometimes I'm lazy and I just accept whatever mistakes happen. Like that one. Whoops, you didn't see that. Some great watercolor artists like Heikala and Iraville have a talent of taking off the drawing gum near perfectly, with the white of the paper being exactly where they wanted it. I haven't mastered this technique yet, but I figure if I keep trying, I'll get the hang of it eventually. One of the struggles I have with this medium is that it's made to be layered, which means you have to paint and then let it dry, and then paint and let it dry, and it's just a whole lot of waiting that I usually don't have the patience for. I often just end up trying to do everything in one shot, but it almost always looks better if you layer it. One of the things you can do is take a hairdryer to speed up the drawing process a bit. Another thing you can do is work on two paintings at the same time so that while one is drying you can work on the other one. Something else you could do that I don't see mentioned in watercolor videos a lot is that you can use the excuse to take a break and play Animal Crossing while things are drying. You will never guess which one I did. The hairdryer one, honest. Watercolors are fun because they do weird things when introduced to salt, which can result in some pretty neat effects once it dries. I also wanted to add in some stars before doing the next layer so that they'll still show through a little bit but be less bright than the ones that I end up drawing on top. This helps to add a sense of depth to the drawing so that instead of everything just floating on the surface, there's little hints of stars that we can only just barely see. You can also add them in by using a paintbrush to flick some gouache at the paper, but this was filmed right next to my computer and my drawing tablet, so it didn't seem like the best idea. From Earth, the human eye can only see a maximum of about 5,000 stars, but there are over 100 billion of them in the Milky Way. I just thought that was neat. I live in the city though, so on a good night I can see like 8 of them, and one of them might be an airplane. I spent way too long watching Star Trek Voyager as a kid, and even longer re-watching them as an adult. I've always loved the way that they made the colorful nebulas look, so I came up with this little astronaut who goes on adventures and generally has a good time, almost as an excuse to paint more nebulas. Like 90% of my astronaut drawings have a nebula in them. They're just fun. I've only ever drawn the astronaut alone though, I guess because the idea of space travel always struck me as being a little lonely. The ISS is only about 350 kilometers above the Earth, which is, a 3-hour drive on the highway? I don't know, I don't drive. There's so much in between here and there, though, that it feels like it should be a lot more. Imagine how it might be for future humans traveling to Mars, or even further, with everyone they know back home on this tiny speck of blue that just gets smaller and smaller the further you go. Personally, I've gotten lost downtown in my own city before, when the place I was going to was about 5 minutes away from where I was, and I had a map. So space travel is pretty much out of the question for me. But it's okay, because with my imagination, I can go anywhere. Was that cheesy enough for you guys? Okay, whatever. Back to the painting. There's this other watercolor artist called Henry Baker who does these amazing paintings, often with star-filled skies and forests in them. He has this technique of dropping, I guess it's water, onto his already wet page, which makes these really cool blooms that are a little bit different from the salt ones. I've never actually gotten this to work for me. I guess he uses witchcraft or something, but that's another thing I want to learn how to do. Henry Baker, if you're out there, teach me your secrets. Alright, anyways, I cut out the bit where I took off the masking fluid, partly because it wasn't very interesting to watch, and partly because it made my camera shake all over the place. But basically you can use these little rubber squares to take it off if you're feeling fancy, or you can just rub it off with your finger or a pen cap or something. I didn't do too badly with the masking fluid on this one, although there's still a few spots that do overlap the background. I'd also like to call myself out here for a minute. I got this cool ceramic palette for mixing colors in, and then I used it to mix like 2 colors and then barely use them. In the future I want to spend more time actually mixing things, but since I wanted the background to be all bright flashy colors anyway, I just kind of use them as is. You might also notice some of the white patches where the turns are on the trail that's leading away from the earth. I was kind of looking for this effect where when you turn suddenly on snow or on ice, there's little flakes that shoot up, so I thought I'd try drawing that. By the end of it, it just kind of reads more like little asteroids, but I'm okay with that. I guess there's some sort of hidden jetpack underneath the sled or something, because I don't think they could have made those turns otherwise. I also hope it's equipped with some sort of interstellar GPS. In 500 kilometers, keep left, then turn right at the next planet. You may notice here that some of the purple from the visor escaped into the rest of the helmet. That's what happens when you have a wet area next to another wet area. They all just kind of want to bleed together and, I guess, hug or something. They just want to be friends. So if you don't want that to happen, make sure it dries before you do the next bit. One thing you could do to fix it is to take a paper towel to it before it dries, or you could go in after with gel pens or something. I went the lazy route. I had an art class years ago, and the only thing I remember from this one particular teacher is repetition creates integration. So basically, if you have a purple spot where you don't want there to be a purple spot, you just go in and add more purple in other areas, and it'll all kind of blend together and look like it was on purpose, which it totally was. It definitely was on purpose. And if anybody asks, it's symbolic. I honestly thought I was done with the background at this point, but some of it still looked too light and I wanted the contrast, so I went back in with black and a little bit of blue in just a few areas. If you have any sort of cheap drawing programs, I know there's a bunch of free ones online. You can also just go ahead and adjust the contrast and add in a little bit of vignetting digitally. And then I thought it needs even more colors, so I went back in and darkened the helmet and added in the little red bits. I get that NASA designed the white suit because our solar system doesn't have a bunch of wacky colors in it, and it's easy to spot a white suit against the infinite black void of space, but personally I would have gone with something a little more rainbow, or neon, or rainbow neon. Where are my Lisa Frank spacesuits? Man, I get a good on drawing that. Anyway. The moral of the story is, space is really cool. I don't understand the science behind it, I am not the most mathsy person, and a lot of space science is very maths heavy, but it sure does look neat. I still haven't gotten the hang of painting in like the yellowy green space. I think it looks really pretty. A lot of people don't like yellow, I don't know why. I think yellow's great. I just can't paint with it with watercolors. It's one of those things that always looks weird when I try to do it, so I guess I need more practice with it, but that's why a lot of my space paintings end up being more blues and purples and pinks and maybe a sea green if I'm feeling adventurous, but that's something I need to work on too. This bit right here is the fun bit. I mean, all the bits are fun bits, but my favorite bit is going in and adding in all the hatching and cross-hatching and line weight and the little details and make everything stand out a bit more. You could definitely go ahead and do extra shading instead. I'm kind of lazy sometimes, so I don't bother, plus I kind of like the look of these hard comic book style lines, but I know it's not for everybody. I just think it's fun, and it looks neat. I think it's a cool compliment to all the colors in the background that flow really nicely into each other. Suddenly it's like, oh, there's a solid line there. I also love the white gel pens. I recommend them to everyone who is starting watercolor because they're so useful for adding in little details. You can't really do big patches with them, but they're perfect for stars or other small highlights, and they save you the trouble of masking off everything. I'll probably do more of this kind of video on this channel. I love the animated videos, but they take a lot longer to make, so I thought these kind of speed paints could be good to make while also working on the songs. Plus it gives me an excuse to, paint more space and other stuff, and it's good practice, and the more I draw with these, the better the drawings will be in the animated ones. And here we have the finished product. If you like this video and you want to see more of them, click the like and subscribe buttons below. See you next time.